PapaKennMedia.
The following is a dramatization. The names have been changed to protect the innocent, or the guilty, whichever works. The trailer for a movie based on an old kid's game sure does look stupid, but surely it can't be any worse than that movie about the doll that came from that other better horror movie, could it? 2 hours later.
Nope! Okay, so Ouija. What can I say about this movie that's nice? You know, after I watched this movie with my friend, we were kind of talking about, is this movie just as good, or I guess the more accurate term would be just as bad, or worse than Annabelle. And Annabelle was a severely disappointing film for me because of how much I enjoyed The Conjuring. Well, I've definitely come to the decision that this movie, Ouija, is worse. In fact, I was originally planning on sort of going easy on this movie, but the more I think about it, the fact that this movie was released so close to Halloween. And let's face it, not all, well, actually very few horror movies are going to be all that good, especially all that scary. That aside, even if they're not scary, they're usually pretty entertaining. And in that being entertaining, they may stick to a formula, but they'll kind of mix it up a bit. This movie was not scary, nor was it entertaining, nor was it interesting. In the least. In the least. It was not entertaining at all. There were moments, admittedly, that it approached being entertaining. It approached the idea of actually having a good idea and executing it properly. However, this movie was so bland, so run-of-the-mill, such an obvious frickin' cash-in. I don't know whether they're trying to sell the Ouija boards again. I don't know if they ever stopped, but I don't know if they're trying to ramp up the sales of that, or what they're trying to do. But this movie was just so pathetically bad that the fact that it actually tied for first, or I think it tied for first in the box office this past weekend, depresses me to no end. The fact that many, including myself, were stupid enough to go see this movie, despite the fact that it has an 8% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, I know not all movies can be taken by that, but when it's that low on the Rotten Tomatoes meter, you've got something pretty bad. Let's say 10% or lower. 10% or lower, it's pretty bad, and it's not going to be worth your money. But no. My friend and I honestly thought, well, it can't be as bad as Annabelle. And we were wrong! So wrong. You might notice I'm a little bit angry, and it's because, like I said, the more I've been thinking about this movie, the more I've been pondering about it, trying to get down a good script for this review. Every time I started going through the points and trying to come up with a positive, it just made me angry at how bad it was. Angrier and angrier until, well, I'm at the point that you see right now. The only thing, scare-wise, this movie had going for it was jump scares, much like Annabelle. However, I would say that if I go through the movie again, which God help me, I hope never happens, that I could count on one hand how many actual jump scares there were. And of the actual effective jump scares that this movie had, one of them involved one of the main characters being somewhere in the dark and then being there when the light turned on. Literally, that was one of the only jump scares that even approached being effective. Because it was one of the only moments where I actually jumped in my seat. Any of the other jump scares? Out of nowhere. The build-up was pathetic. There was no build-up. And then the worst part about it was the fact that my friend and I were not alone in that theater to make fun of this movie, because it actually would have been entertaining at that point, because the acting is so bad in this film. I would say there were maybe 2 actors that were, they kind of approached being good, and that was the main girl who's, hell, I don't remember her name, and then another character who, she's the first one to die, and as far as I can tell, she's the only not white person in the main cast, even though she's pretty light-skinned. And that's another thing, it's like, out of this entire town, the entire town, they don't show one non-white person at all. And I mean, maybe if it's a low-budget indie film and your casting is tight, you know, whatever. But this is freaking Universal Studios. You can't tell me they can afford to hire someone that isn't white. Oh, okay, I take that back. There is one person in the movie who isn't white, and it's the main character's grandma, who goes from being just, you know, this loving character that the main character goes to, you know, because she's feeling down because her friend, it seems like, committed suicide, to all of a sudden, she's some authority on mystics, an authority on, I was going to say Jenga, authority on Ouija and spirits. It's like, yeah, the one obviously not white character in this entire movie is, of course, an old lady that is authority on mystics. For no apparent reason. We're given no reason to believe why she would know all of these things, other than the fact that all of a sudden in one scene the main character is talking to her and the old lady is giving her advice. Oh, what else? I already commented about the acting, didn't I? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did. The worst, the absolute worst actor in this entire movie, and that's a feat. Honest to God, that's quite a feat to pull off. Actually, it was the guy that executed one of the only effective jump scares in the movie. Pete, I think is his name. Whether or not it's right, I don't care. I'm just going to call him Pete because that's how little I care. He was... Now look, I don't claim to be a good actor. I don't claim to be an actor. But to see this person perform on screen and make as much as I assume he did angers me to no end, because he was horrible. Every line executed poorly. He was bad for a soap opera, which my friend actually made that comparison with this movie. It's like everyone's emotions was like a soap opera. It's like, you know, you go from 0 to 60 and nothing flat. But this guy's acting was bad for soap opera. Oh, it was just so painful. And then probably the most annoying part of it all, and being an older person that has seen, well, I'm 30 years old, being a person that has seen the Ouija board commercials in the past, this probably bothers me more than some of the younger audience that may have seen the movie. But when they're doing the Ouija board as a whole big group to try and communicate with their dead friend, I didn't look up the script for the commercial, but at least 75% of that segment was quoted from the commercial. It's like, what are you doing? Are you moving it? Stop it. It's not me. I did not expect to get this angry when I pressed the record button on this camera. But my God, this movie was just so very bad. So bad. And in fact, I'm going to end it there. If you waited through this entire review, just take it from me. Don't see this movie. For the love of God, don't even bother with it just to check it out and see if it's really that bad. I swear to you, on my life, that it is not worth $1. It's not worth $1 theater. It's not worth a rental. It's not worth shit. Do not see this movie. At any costs. You can do anything and do better. You can go see Annabelle and enjoy it more. And again, that movie really disappointed me, but obviously not as much as this one. Anyway. Oh, that's really all I have to say. I'm sure I could probably come up with some more things. Actually, I did think of more things that I wanted to talk about, and I'll try and skim over it really quick. Throughout this entire movie, multiple kids start dying. Multiple kids. And each of these kids have their mouths sewn shut. Have their mouths sewn shut when they die. And it's happening all within this one group of friends. Now, you aren't going to tell me that the police aren't going to get involved at some point. Now, I think they may have been there, possibly, when the first girl died. Probably not, but it seems like they might have been. After that, one kid after another starts dying, and you're telling me not a single officer gets involved. Not a single one. And it's not like an adult didn't know because the girl went to her grandmother. And then, on top of that, the parents were just gone. All of the parents are seemingly just gone. The girl who died at the beginning, her parents were gone because they wanted to get away from the house, which is understandable. I will give them that. But the two sisters, the main character and her little sister, their dad goes out of town on, I think, a business trip. And he's just gone the rest of the movie. And it apparently spans over a few weeks. He apparently doesn't call. And he hasn't come home that entire time. But on top of that, you're telling me that every single one of these other kids who are seniors in high school, none of their parents are ever home. Ever. And it's not like that's going to have a huge bearing on the plot because the kids are probably going to die anyway. But for the love of God, you're telling me that when these kids die, their parents aren't all torn up, that the parents aren't going to go to the kids and try and figure out what was going on, whether the kid felt like he was going to kill himself or what? Okay, I'm going to cut myself off there. I'm going to cut myself off there, and that's going to be it. I'm actually going to give this rating now because this is going to get my lowest rating, and the fact that I did not walk out on this movie amazes me still. This movie has a 0 out of 10, or a 0 out of 5 rather. And really, my zeros, I'm going to call The Room out of 10, which is one of the most horrible movies ever made. Actually, no, because that's actually interesting enough to actually see it so bad. Let's just go with a 0 out of 10, because that's really as low as you can get, and about the biggest insult I think you can give this movie. So again, do not see this movie ever. Ever. Don't pay any sort of money. If you want to pirate it, that's the extent. But anyway, everyone, thank you for listening to me rant. I'm going to go drink some water because the blood is rushing to my head or away from my head, whatever. And I will see you next time on the next Papa Kenn Reviews for a hopefully better movie. Later.